-71 Celsius, and I could hear something screaming under the snow. At that cold, nothing should be making that sound. The wind cracks wood. Ice snaps. Living things go quiet. Then it came again, thinner, weaker, like it was running out of time. My name is Walter Hale. I am 80 years old. I live alone in Yakutia, far enough from town that help is not a plan. People will tell you a tiger does not belong out here. Most winters, they are right. But the winter road brings more than supplies, and lately there have been rumors, trucks moving at night, men who do not want questions. That night my water barrel was almost empty, so I stepped outside with a bucket to scoop clean snow and melt it by the stove. The blizzard hit my face like grit. My cabin turned into a pale blur behind me. My eyelashes stiffened. My breath hurt. The scream cut through the storm again. Not metal. Not a fox. Not a bird. A cub. I froze. The storm lies to your ears. It throws sound around. It turns you in circles until you cannot find your own door. So I moved slow, one hand sliding along my fence line. 10 steps. 15. Maybe 20. I kept my eyes on the faint shape of my cabin, because if I lost it, the cold would finish the job. The sound came again, right under my boots. The snow crust gave a soft crack. I looked down. A dark circle in the ice, half buried by drift. A fishing hole. The kind people cover with snow so it does not freeze solid overnight. Except tonight, the snow had covered it too well. I aimed my flashlight down. First I saw the rim. It was scratched raw, deep claw marks etched into the ice, and a smear of red frozen into the white like paint. My stomach tightened before I even saw the animal. Then the light caught 2 eyes, gold, wide, terrified. A Siberian tiger cub, wedged below the rim, shaking so hard the straw and frost around it trembled. Its whiskers were crusted with ice. Its mouth opened, and the scream came out again, weaker than before. I saw its front paw, raw, bleeding, torn up from clawing at the wall, again and again, until the ice won. The cub tried to climb. Its paws scraped, slipped. It dropped back down with a soft thud that made my chest ache. A cub does not end up alone like this unless something went wrong. And when something goes wrong for a cub, the next part is never small. I swung my light across the snow around the hole. Tracks, half erased, but too big to mistake. They circled the hole in frantic loops, pacing, stopping, starting again. A mother tiger had been here, searching for her baby, which meant she could be close. And if I climbed down, I would not be the only one fighting for that cub. The wind shoved my shoulders hard enough to make me sway. My fingers were numb inside stiff gloves. I looked back at my cabin. It was barely there through the white. Then the cub looked up at me and made a different sound. Not a scream. A thin, broken plea. I should have stepped away, gone inside, locked the door, told myself nature is cruel and I am old. But the cub was trapped, bleeding, failing. So I pulled my rope from the shed hook, tied it to the fence post with shaking hands, and dropped to my knees at the edge. The air inside the hole felt strangely still, like the cold was holding its breath. I eased one leg down, then the other. I lowered myself inch by inch. Ice scraped my coat. The rope burned against my gloves. The cub backed into the corner, eyes locked on my hands. I whispered anyway, "Easy. I am getting you out." My boots touched the bottom. I reached out slowly. The cub panicked and lunged, claws flashing. Pain ripped through my glove. And above me, at the rim, the snow shifted. A low growl rolled through the storm. Then the ice at the edge gave a heavy crack, like something big had just stepped closer. I stopped breathing, because the storm had not brought me to the cub. The storm had brought the mother back. The growl above me was not anger. It was a warning. The cub pressed deeper into the corner, shaking so hard its teeth clicked. I kept my palms open and low, because one sudden move could turn fear into a scream, and a scream into a charge. My rope was tight around my waist. I tugged once. The fence post held. Good. The ice at the rim cracked again, heavier, like a paw-shifting weight. She was right there. I lifted my flashlight toward the opening, careful not to blast her in the eyes. The beam caught swirling snow. Then, for a blink, stripes. Thick fur. Massive. Then nothing. That was worse. Silence means decision. I forced my breathing to slow, and I whispered to the cub anyway. Easy. Look at me. Stay. The cub stared at my hands, not trusting, just surviving. In Yakutia, I always carry two things in my coat, a scarf and a strip of dried fish. You learn to keep small comforts close when winter has teeth. I pulled the fish out first, slow. I held it near the cub, then set it down on the ice between us and leaned back. No reaching, no grabbing. The cub sniffed, hesitated, then bit fast, like it thought the food would vanish. The chewing was weak. It kept pausing to breathe. A wheeze. That sound hit me harder than the growl. It meant the clock was already running out. Above me, I heard a soft exhale. Warm breath spilling down into the hole, turning to fog in my flashlight beam. She was sniffing her baby. And me. My stomach tightened. I slid the scarf off my neck and folded it into a thick pad. I pushed it across the ice until it touched the cub's chest. The cub pressed into it immediately, desperate. Good. Stay there. I shifted closer, inch by inch, keeping my body low, keeping my shoulders turned, trying to look smaller than I was. I reached under the cub's chest with one arm, then under the back legs with the other. The cub jolted. Claws scraped my glove. It opened its mouth like it was about to scream. I froze. The cub's mouth closed again, and the sound came out as a thin choke instead, like it did not have the strength. I held it tighter, gentle but firm, and murmured, "Easy, easy." Above, the rim creaked. A weight moved. I did not have time for perfect. I had time for now. I wrapped the scarf around the cub's front legs, not tight, just enough to keep the paws close so it could not flail and slip. Then I pulled on the rope and started climbing. Boot to ice. Pull. Brace. Move. My arms shook almost instantly. The cold made everything heavy. Halfway up, the cub shifted and made a small squeal. A deep growl rolled through the storm, louder now, closer. I stopped, hanging there, heart hammering. If she lunged, I could not dodge. I could only fall. I forced my voice to stay steady, like calm could be a shield. Easy. I am taking him out. Easy. The growl cut off. That silence again. I climbed faster, because my strength was going. My fingers were numb. The rope burned through my gloves. My shoulder felt like fire under the cold. My hand hit the rim. I dragged one knee up, then the other. The wind slammed my face the second I broke the surface. For one split second, I saw her clearly. A huge striped shape 10 feet away, low to the ground, breath steaming, eyes locked on the bundle in my arms. She did not look wild. She looked precise. I stayed on my knees. I did not stand. I backed away one slow step at a time, keeping the cub pressed to my chest, keeping my head lowered. The cub whimpered. Her head lifted. Her body slid forward, silent. Then the blizzard swallowed her outline again. And that was the worst part. Not seeing her meant she could be moving. I turned toward my cabin. The shape was faint, but there. Too far. Behind me, a soft thump pressed into the snow. Closer, she was following. And as I started crawling backward toward my door, one thought hit me like another gust. If she follows me home, I will be trapped inside my own cabin, with her waiting outside, and the cub in my arms, still alive, still begging, still making me choose. My cabin door was 10 steps away, and it felt like a mile. I kept moving backward on my knees, the cub tight against my chest, my eyes flicking between the faint outline of my door and the white space behind me where she could appear at any angle. Then I heard it again, that soft thump in the snow. Closer. She was not charging. She was tracking, steady and silent, following the sound of her baby and the scent of my hands on its fur. I reached the steps and forced my numb fingers around the handle. The metal burned through my gloves. I shoved the door open with my shoulder and slipped inside. Warm air hit my face, thin but real. I pulled the door shut as quietly as I could and locked the bolt. The cub made a weak rasp, and my heart jumped. Outside, something scraped along the wall. Slow, deliberate. Then a long breath pushed through the wood like the cabin was breathing with her. A heavy body settled into the snow right beside my door. She was not leaving. I did not stand up. I stayed low. I moved away from the windows and kept the lights dim. The last thing I wanted was for her to catch a clear shape through the glass. I laid the cub on a folded blanket near the stove, but not close to the direct heat. Its body was cold all the way through. Warming too fast can finish what the storm started. Up close the paw looked worse. The pads were raw. Ice clung to the fur between the toes. A faint smell of blood hung in the air. I warmed water to lukewarm and dabbed slowly, coaxing ice away without tearing skin. The cub flinched and went still, exhausted. Outside, a low sound rolled through the wall, not quite a growl, more like a warning you feel in your ribs. I froze with the cloth in my hand. Then the cub's breathing hitched. I leaned in, listening. Shallow, but steady. Good. Stay. I tore dried fish into tiny pieces and held one near its mouth. The cub sniffed and took it, barely chewing. It swallowed hard, like even that was effort. I offered a drop of water on my fingertip. One lick, then another. The smallest victories, but they mattered. The stove popped. The cub jerked and let out a tiny sound, thin and helpless. Outside, the mother hit the wall once hard. The cabin shuddered. The stove rattled. A dusting of frost shook loose from the ceiling beams. My stomach dropped. If she decided to come through the door, the bolt would not matter. I stayed low and crawled toward the window. I lifted a corner of the curtain, just enough to see through the frost. Stripes. A shoulder. A massive head turned toward my door. Her breath fogged the glass in slow pulses. Her eyes were open, unblinking, fixed on the place where her baby disappeared. And then beyond her, deeper in the storm, I saw something that did not belong. A light, not the moon. A beam sweeping the snow left to right, searching. And another beam joined it. And beneath the wind, faint but real, I heard a distant engine, low and persistent, getting closer. Snowmobiles. People. My mouth went dry. Because a mother tiger outside my window was one kind of danger. But strangers moving through a blizzard at -71, searching the snow on purpose, that was another. And if they were following tracks, they would find mine, straight from the river, to my door. The engine sound grew louder, then faded, then came back again, like they were circling. I stayed low and let the curtain fall back into place. The cub lifted its head, ears twitching. It heard it too. Outside, the mother stayed pressed near my door. A silent wall of muscle and intent. A beam of light slid across my window. Slow, careful. It moved away, then returned, brighter, closer, like whoever held it had seen something they liked. A shadow passed along my wall. Boots in snow. Then voices, muffled by the storm, but close enough to understand. There. Tracks. Another voice, sharper. They go to this cabin. My stomach dropped, so they were not just traveling. They were following me. The mother released a low growl that vibrated through the logs. I heard a startled curse outside, then a quick step back. For a second, the light wavered. Then a calm voice cut through, steady as if this was business. Easy. Do not scare her. We just want the cub. The cub made a thin sound, barely more than breath. I felt panic rise anyway, because one louder cry could flip the whole night into blood. If the mother attacked them, they would shoot. If they shot her, the cub would lose its only chance. If they shot near my cabin, anything could happen. I slid away from the window and crawled to the radio. My thumb shook as I pressed the button. Officer Kellen. It is Walter. Snowmobiles. People. They are outside my cabin. Static. Then Kellen's voice, sharp and awake. Walter, lock your door. Stay down. Do not open for anyone. They are already here, I whispered. A pause. Are they armed? Outside, metal clicked. Not a tool. A weapon. Yes, I said. Kellen swore, low and furious. I am coming. Do not let them in. Keep away from the windows. I looked at the cub, curled tight, shaking, eyes wide. I moved it farther from the glass and pressed my hand lightly against its side, not comforting, just steadying. Quiet. Stay quiet. Outside, footsteps came closer. Then the knock hit my door, hard enough to rattle the frame. Once. Twice. 3 times. A man called out, loud, confident, like he belonged here. Walter Hale. Open up. He said my name like we were old friends. The mother growled again, deeper, and the knocking stopped for a beat. Then I heard a boot scrape across the snow, moving sideways. Not leaving, positioning. A beam of light slid into the cabin through a crack by the window frame, searching the floor, the stove, the blankets. It found the cub. A voice, right outside the glass, low and satisfied. There it is. In the same second, the mother tiger exploded into motion. A violent snarl. A heavy slam against the wall. Claws scraping wood like it was nothing. Men shouted. Something metallic clattered into the snow. And then the sound that made my blood go cold. A gunshot. The gunshot split the storm, and for one heartbeat, the world went quiet. Then the mother tiger made a sound I will never forget. Not a roar. Pain. Raw and wrong. The kind of sound that makes your body go cold before your mind catches up. I dropped over the cub, covering it with my chest. The cub shook so hard, the floor felt like it was trembling with it. Outside, men shouted over each other. Back, back, I told you not to shoot. A calmer voice cut through them, cold as metal. She charged. I stopped her. Now get the cub. Another shot cracked, closer. Wood splintered. Something punched the doorframe, and a thin seam opened near the edge. A knife of air slid inside, and my fingers went numb again instantly. I crawled low and lifted the curtain the smallest amount. My flashlight caught stripes in the snow. The mother was down our side, breathing hard, steam rising from her mouth in short, angry bursts. Not dead. A man stood over her with a weapon, shaking, panicked. Another kept the light on my window like he was pinning me in place. The calm voice spoke again, closer now. Forget her. Morozov wants the cub alive. Morozov. So this was not random hunters in a storm. This was an order. Boots crunched toward my door. I did not have strength to fight them. Not at 80. Not with a dying cub in my arms. Not with cold pouring in through a crack in the wood. So I did the only thing that could beat a storm and men at the same time. I made them visible. I grabbed my flare, crawled to the door, and cracked it open just a hand width. Cold slammed my face. Snow blasted in. I angled the flare up and fired. The red streak shot into the sky, bright enough to stain the blizzard like blood. For a second the whole world turned red, the snowmobiles, the men, the stripes in the snow. Then I slammed the door shut and threw my shoulder against it. Outside, the men froze. One shouted, furious. He fired a flare. The calm voice snapped. Move. Now, before someone sees. Something hit my door. Once. Twice. The bolt shuddered. The cub made a thin sound, almost a cough, and I felt it tense like it might scream. I pressed my forehead to its fur and whispered, Please, stay quiet. The door slammed again, and the bolt started to slide, just a millimeter, then another. Cold pushed through the crack harder. Outside, the mother tiger moved. First a low growl that rolled through the logs. Then the scrape of claws. Then a violent heave, like she dragged herself up using pure hate. A man swore, sharp and scared. She is up. The next sound was chaos. A snarl, close, boots scrambling. A snowmobile tipping, metal shrieking across ice. The men yelled and fell back, and in that brief window I heard a different engine far down the road. Not a snowmobile. A truck pushing hard through the storm. Kellen. But my door did not care who was coming to save me. The bolt slid again, and the wood around the frame groaned like it was about to give up. If that door opened, I would not be choosing what came in. Not the men, not the tiger, not the cold. All of it. The bolt slid one more time and stopped. Not because it wanted to. Because my shoulder was jammed against the door, and my whole body was shaking with the effort. Outside, men were shouting. The mother was snarling. Snowmobiles were grinding in the snow like wounded machines. Then a new sound cut through everything. A horn. One long blast, loud and close. Kellen. A truck engine roared, heavy and angry, coming straight in. Not circling, not searching, like he meant to hit something if he had to. Headlights washed across my window, white and hard. Shadows snapped on the walls. Outside, the men's voices changed. Police. Move. Go. Go. I stayed low, keeping the cub pressed to the floor away from the glass. Its breathing was fast and shaky. Its paw twitched inside the scarf wrap. I whispered to it, because it was the only thing I could control. Look at me. Stay. The door took one more hit, then stopped, not from my shoulder, from outside. A heavy impact, metal slamming wood, like someone had just shoved something between my door and theirs. Then Kellen's voice, sharp and terrifyingly close, right on my porch. Step away from the door. Now. A pause. Then the calm voice answered, still smooth, still arrogant. This is not your business, officer. We are retrieving property. Kellen let out a short laugh with no humor. Property. In a blizzard at -71. With a gun. Another impact. The men cursed. In the headlights, a dark shape shot low across the snow. The mother. She surged toward the nearest snowmobile, all stripes and rage. Snow exploded under her paws. A man screamed. The machine tipped fully, engine whining, then choking into a rough sputter. Kellen shouted, loud enough to cut through the storm. Nobody shoot. For 1 second, the world held its breath. Then someone fired anyway. A single shot into the air. The mother snapped her head toward the sound, ears flat. She hesitated, wounded and furious, then bolted into the white. One heartbeat she was there, breath steaming in the headlights. The next heartbeat she was gone, swallowed by the blizzard like a nightmare slipping under ice. My stomach dropped. Now she was loose, hurt, and close. The calm voice swore, furious idiot, Now we lost her. Kellen stepped forward into the light, weapon raised, voice hard. On the ground, hands where I can see them. Boots shifted. Someone ran. A snowmobile surged, trying to break away. Kellen fired once, not at a person. At the machine, low, into the side where metal meets drive. The snowmobile jerked, skidded sideways, and died in a spray of snow. Then silence fell for a beat, thick and shocking. Kellen was at my door. "Walter, open it. It is me." I hesitated, because the calm voice had used my name too. Kellen spoke again, lower, personal. "Your fence post. The rope. Smart." That was him. I cracked the door open. Cold poured in. Light poured in. Kellen stepped inside fast and shut it behind him. His eyes went straight to the cub. Jesus, Walter. He took in the splintered frame, the crack where cold leaked in, the red smear of flare light still faint in the air. Then he looked at me, jaw tight. They are not locals. One of them said a name, Morozov. My throat tightened. Kellen's eyes hardened. Then this is bigger than a cub in a storm. He crouched near the cub, forcing gentleness into his hands. "We have to move it. Tonight. Quietly." I stared at him. "Move it where?" Kellen answered without looking up. "A place they cannot reach. And we leave now, before they come back with more." Outside, from the direction of the river, a low sound rolled through the blizzard. Not close, not far. A warning. The mother was still out there. And she was listening. Kellen turned the stove down until the flame was barely alive and snapped the lantern off. The cabin sank into dim orange from the coals, just enough to see hands and shadows. Good. Light makes you a target. He leaned close to me, voice barely above breath. Back door. No talking. No sudden movements. "If you fall, you do not get up alone." I nodded once. My body felt like old wood. Stiff. Heavy. Angry. But the cub was breathing. And that meant we were not done. Kellen slid his hands under the cub, the way you lift something fragile, not like a man lifting prey. The cub tried to squirm. A thin sound rose in its throat. Kellen froze instantly. I pressed 2 fingers gently against the cub's cheek, not petting, just steadying. Easy, easy. The sound died into a weak wheeze. Kellen wrapped the cub tighter in my scarf and tucked it against his chest under his heavy coat, like a smuggled heartbeat. Then he pointed toward the back. We go behind the shed, then cut to the tree line. My truck is parked wide. I left it running, because at this cold, if you shut it off, it might never start again. The wind will cover the sound. We move fast and low. A new sound hit us then. From the front of the cabin. A voice, muffled but close. "He is not opening. Check the back." My blood turned to ice. So some of them were still here. Kellen's jaw tightened. He motioned me toward the back door. I moved as quietly as my knees would let me. The floor creaked anyway. Outside, a low growl rolled through the storm, closer than before, like it was circling the cabin. Not at the river, not far, near. Kellen held still, listening. Another voice outside, nearer now, angry. I saw light. He is in there. A flashlight beam suddenly cut through a thin crack by the window frame and slid across the wall. They had found a gap. The beam moved fast, hunting shapes. It hit Kellen's sleeve. It hit my face. A shout exploded outside. There, back door. Kellen yanked the door open, and the cold punched in like a wall. We stepped out into the blizzard. Snow swallowed our legs. Wind grabbed our coats. The world was white and noise and nothing else. Kellen pulled me down behind the shed. A gunshot cracked. Wood snapped above my head and splinters sprayed my cheek like needles. Kellen shoved me lower. Move. We crawled through snow. using the shed as cover, then slipped toward the tree line, staying low, staying tight. Behind us, men yelled. Boots crunched. A snowmobile coughed, then another. Engines fighting the cold. Then the mother tiger stepped into the open, not as a shadow, as a huge wounded shape caught in the edge of the headlights, breath steaming, ears pinned back. She did not rush. She tested the air. She listened. She took one slow step, then another, like she was choosing. Kellen's voice went hard beside me. Do not look back. I did not mean to. My boots snagged on buried ice, and I stumbled. My body twisted for balance, and my eyes caught the open space behind us. And in that same second, the cub made a sound under Kellen's coat. A weak cry, small, but sharp enough to cut through the wind. The mother's head snapped toward it. Her whole body lowered. Then she moved, fast, silent, straight into the white after us. Kellen grabbed my sleeve and hauled me deeper into the trees, pulling me like the forest itself could hide us. The blizzard followed anyway. Snow whipped between trunks. Branches creaked. The world narrowed to black lines and white noise. Behind us, I did not hear her pause. That was the worst part. You can outrun sound. You cannot outrun silence. Kellen kept the cub pinned tight under his coat and moved with controlled panic, the way trained men move when they know one mistake will kill two people instead of one. He leaned close to my ear. If she catches us, do not run. Drop. Cover your neck. If she takes the cub, let her. Do you understand? My throat went dry. Let her. Those words felt like betrayal, but my body understood the logic. A mother wants her baby. A mother does not want to waste energy on an old man, unless she decides he is the threat. We broke through the last line of trees, and I saw Kellen's truck through the snow. Half hidden, headlights off, engine still breathing. The vibration hummed in the ground. Cullen shoved me toward the passenger side. Get in. Now. I grabbed the handle, and my fingers slipped on ice. I forced it again, and the door gave. The moment it opened, warm air leaked out, and the cub stirred under Kellen's coat. A thin sound rose in its throat. Kellen stiffened. So did I, because something moved between the trees behind us. Striped. Massive. Close. The mother tiger stepped into view, frost on her whiskers, blood darkening one shoulder. She stopped in the open like she owned the storm. Her eyes locked on Kellen's coat, on the place where the cub was hidden. She made a low sound that felt like it came from the ground. Kellen did not raise his weapon. He did not shout. He did not move fast. He lowered himself to one knee. Slowly, he opened his coat just enough for her to see. The cub's face appeared, wrapped in my scarf, eyes half open. It made a broken little sound. The mother took one step forward, then another. I could not breathe. Kellen's voice was barely there. Easy. Easy. He held the cub low, not offering it like a prize, just letting her smell it, letting her know it was alive. For a heartbeat, the mother's nostrils flared. She sniffed. Her ears twitched. Then she looked at me. Not at the cub. At me. And I felt, in a sick flash, that she was deciding who to blame. A new sound cracked through the trees. Engines. Snowmobiles. Multiple. Closer now. Headlights flickered between trunks like moving ghosts. Kellen's head snapped toward the sound. His voice turned urgent. Walter. In the truck. Quiet. He made a choice in the same second. Not because it was right. Because it was the only move that might keep the cub alive. He slid the cub back under his coat and pressed it into my arms through the open passenger door. Take him. Get inside. Do not make a sound. The cub was light as a bundle of sticks. Too light. I pulled it against my chest and climbed into the seat, shaking, trying not to jolt the injured paw. Kellen shut my door almost all the way, leaving it barely latched, and stepped away from the truck on purpose. He moved sideways into the open snow, putting himself between the mother and the first flicker of headlights. Not with words, with his body. The mother tiger's head turned toward the approaching lights. Her whole frame lowered, not toward the truck, toward the men. Kellen took 2 slow steps away from the truck, drawing attention, buying distance, buying seconds. The snowmobiles broke through the trees. A flashlight beam swept, caught the truck shape, and snapped toward Kellen. A voice shouted, excited and sharp, "There, the cop!" In that instant, the mother tiger launched forward, not at me, not at the cub, at the lights. The mother tiger hit the first snowmobile like a storm made of muscle. Snow exploded. Metal screamed. The machine tipped and skidded, throwing a spray of ice as it died. A man flew off and rolled into the white. The others shouted and fanned out, engines revving, lights whipping through the trees in wild arcs. Kellen did not run back to the truck. He stayed out there on purpose, keeping their eyes on him and off the passenger door where I sat shaking with the cub in my arms. I pressed my face close to the cub's fur. Please, please stay quiet. The cub's breath was shallow. It smelled like cold iron and blood. Outside, the mother tiger snarled again, and the sound was so close it made the glass vibrate. Then a new voice cut through the chaos. Not calm now, furious. Morozov is going to kill us. Shoot her. Kellen yelled back, loud and sharp. No shooting. You hear me? No shooting. A gun lifted anyway. I saw the silhouette through the snow, the edge of metal catching headlight glare. My heart slammed. If they shot her, she would die. If she died, the cub would lose its only chance. The mother lunged low and fast, and the gunman stumbled, firing into the snow instead. A shot cracked. Then another. Too close. For a heartbeat, the mother vanished into the white. Then she appeared again, nearer the truck, moving along the passenger side like a shadow with teeth. She had changed direction. She was circling. I understood what she was doing. She could smell the cub. Warmth, blood, breath. She was coming to the only living thing that mattered to her. Me. The windshield flashed as a beam swung toward the truck. Someone was moving in, using the chaos as cover. Not toward Kellen, toward my door. I slid down in the seat, pulling the cub lower, trying to hide it under my coat the way Kellen had, trying to keep its injured paw from scraping anything. Boots crunched close. A face pressed near the passenger glass, trying to see through the frost. Then the weapon lifted. The mother's shape was behind him, so close he should have felt it. He did not. She hit him from the side in one violent blur. The weapon flew and vanished into the snow. The man made a single broken sound, and everything became boots, scrambling, and breath and panic. I could not look at what happened next. I did not have to, because the mother was suddenly right there. Her breath fogged the window in heavy pulses. Her stripes filled my entire view. Then her head lifted, and her eyes locked onto mine through the glass. No rage, no confusion. Just a single question burning in silence. Where is my baby? The cub shifted in my arms and made the smallest sound, barely there. Her ears snapped forward. She pressed her nose to the thin crack by the door seal and pulled in 2 short, sharp breaths. I heard the soft scrape of whiskers against rubber. Kellen's voice cut through the storm from somewhere left of the headlights. Walter, do not open that door. The mother tiger pushed her weight against the truck, testing it. The whole vehicle rocked. The latch above my head trembled. A tiny metallic click sounded, like something inside was starting to give. Outside, the men regrouped, circling again, shouting each other's names. One voice yelled, furious, "Get the cub! Now, before she breaks the truck. Tears burned in my eyes from cold and fear, because in that moment I understood the worst truth of the night. The mother tiger was not hunting me. The men were, and the only thing between my chest and their hands was a locked passenger door and a wounded mother who was starting to lose patience. Then, through the windshield, I saw Kellen. He was running toward the truck with something in his hand, not a weapon, a flare gun. He looked straight at me, eyes wild, and shouted one word: "Hold." Kellen burst into the edge of the headlights, one hand up, the flare gun tight in his grip. The men saw him and shouted, "There! Stop him!" A snowmobile engine surged. A beam snapped onto Kellen's chest. The mother tiger pressed against my door, lifted her head, and tracked the movement like a blade. Kellen did not aim at the men. He aimed at the snow right in front of the truck. He fired. The flare hit the ground with a violent hiss, spilling red light and thick smoke across the ice like a curtain. The world turned crimson. The men flinched, blinded for a beat. The mother recoiled half a step, startled by the sudden fire and noise. That half step was everything. "Now, Walter." I shoved the passenger door open and stayed low, turning my body sideways, keeping the cub hidden in my coat for one more second. Cold punched my lungs. Kellen was already there, moving fast, coat open. He slid his arms in and took the cub from me in one smooth motion, keeping it low, keeping the injured paw protected. The mother lunged. Not at me. At the scent. At the bundle. Kellen dropped to his knees instantly, turning his shoulder, making himself smaller, making the cub less visible. Her claws scraped the truck instead, a sound that made my teeth ache. She snapped at air, inches from Kellen's coat. Kellen did not fight. He did not shout. He spoke one sentence, low and steady. "He is alive." The mother froze. Her nostrils flared. She sniffed through the scarf, through the smoke, through Kellen's coat. The cub made a weak sound, more breath than cry. The mother answered with a low rumble, not calm, not rage, something older than both. Then the men recovered. Shapes moved in the red smoke. Weapons lifted. One of them shouted, "Take the cub. Shoot the tiger." Kellen looked up, eyes hard. Then he made the only decision that could end this without more death. He slid the cub along the snow, slowly, toward the mother. Not throwing, placing, a baby back where it belonged. For a second my mind refused it. Then the mother lowered her head, sniffed once, then gripped the scarf gently and pulled the cub to her chest. The cub stopped shaking as if someone had finally turned the storm off. The mother lifted her head and faced the men. Wounded, furious, unmovable. A man raised his weapon. Kellen shouted, louder than I had heard him all night, "Do not." In the distance, new headlights pushed through the blizzard. Closer, heavier, real. The men hesitated, then swore and scrambled for their snowmobiles. Kellen did not chase them. He stayed between them and the mother, hands open, making the message simple. Leave. The snowmobiles roared and vanished into the white. The flare burned lower, the smoke thinning, the red light fading back into ordinary snow. The mother tiger did not run right away. She stared at Kellen. Then she stared at me. Not forgiveness. Not thanks. A final warning, like a signature written in silence. Then she turned and moved into the trees. The cub held close, her stripes disappearing one line at a time until the blizzard swallowed her completely. Only then did my legs give out. I sank onto the snow beside the truck, shaking so hard I could not stand. Kellen crouched beside me, breath steaming. "You did good, Walter." I let out a broken laugh. "I just went out to get water." Kellen looked toward the storm where the tracks vanished. Morozov will come again. I swallowed hard. Kellen's voice stayed low, but the promise inside was steel. Then we make sure he never gets this close again. And that was the moment I understood. Saving the cub was only the beginning. If you want more true survival stories like this, subscribe now. And comment one word, courage or fear. I read them all.